video about whether you should be, how do you spot property scams. If you haven't caught it, make sure you catch it over here. What are some of the telltale signs, to make sure that your property investments are safe? And a question that we've been getting repeatedly since then is, should we look at new built property or should we look at existing property? In fact, with one of the clients I was talking to today, she was sharing with me that one of the local groups, Dr. Rowe in Singapore, that I won't name names, but they were talking about investing in the UK and how they have actually worked with experts that they call local experts and grade A developers, and they are selling 2-bedroom flats in Manchester for 250 grand pounds, and
too expensive.
All expenses, maybe they get about £70 a month cash flow. And immediately I was like, wait a minute, I think we could buy almost 2 terrace houses for that amount, right? And the cash flow is going to be easily in excess of 1,000.
So this is a developer selling in Singapore to Singaporeans from the UK from a block of apartments.
It's going to be a block, and the way they set it up is such that if you buy collectively, then there's going to be a discount, like a 5% discount. So I mean, that's in the UK, but I mean, I personally have experienced a scheme like that that's where I bought my property in Malaysia, and I had probably even a bigger discount than 5%. But that's the one. For those of you who haven't seen my video, check out this video over here where I talk about how I'm still stuck with that property. I can't sell, I can't rent it, and I know what probably happened with that case is the person that was putting together all us as investors probably got a unit or 2 for free if he hit certain milestones. Like, for example, the developer tells him, if you sell 10 units, I'll give you 1 for free, or if you sell 20 units, you get 1 for free, something like that. And I was like, wow, when I heard that, it changed my perspective entirely. Yeah. So I think a big question is, on the topic of scams, check out other video, but today we wanted to talk, even if it's for investments, should we then be looking at new builds or off plan, depending on where you're living, property that is already built? What are some pros and cons? So maybe we could do a little bit like a debate, right? Maybe I'll represent the new builds for pros, and then you can represent the existing properties, and let's see how it goes.
All right, let's do it, man.
It's going to be tough for me because I have a bias against new build properties, but let's try.
So you're going to be for them, right? Okay, yeah. So you going to start?
You can start. You can start, and I'll let you start.
So I believe you're selling me a property in a development where there's a lot of investors. Is that right?
Yeah, lots of investors, and if we all buy together, there's going to be a bulk discount, and it'll be managed professionally. So yeah.
So
it's going to be half the price of property in Singapore.
So for everybody watching this live, I drew a diagram up of my warning signs, right? So warning sign number 1 is what Daniel just given me there. I kind of walked you into the lion's den on that one, Daniel. The I stands for lots of investors. So Daniel, these investors, when we all buy this block of apartments, what happens if a whole bunch of us decide we want to sell all at the same time? I know, in a couple of years' time. What's going to happen to the price of our properties?
Sometimes there's a guaranteed buyback scheme by the developer.
Ah, really?
Yeah, so they'll make sure.
Yeah, what's that guaranteed price?
They'll guarantee at like 5% more than what we paid for it. So it's sounds pretty, low risk. And in the meantime, you get guaranteed rent.
Oh, okay. There's my number 2. You didn't know this. I didn't show you this diagram before we started the call. So number 2 is look out for guaranteed rent, everybody. Because when Daniel, in this case, not Daniel really, but when the developer says guaranteed rent, what they'll do is they'll give you guaranteed rent for a period, and then it drops off a cliff. So here's my question to the developer, which is Daniel in this case. So what happens at the end of the guaranteed rent period, Daniel, when all 65 investors have come to the end of their guaranteed rent period? What's going to happen then to me as an investor in that block?
Well, I mean, it's in a good location, so we will just continue to manage the property for you.
But you're not a management company. You only do a guaranteed rent just for the period of the build to get it sold as quickly as possible, I believe.
That's right. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but it's. You
just said guaranteed. As a developer, you tell me it's guaranteed.
It's guaranteed for
Ah,
a period. Ah,
so it's usually what, for about 12 months, is it?
it depends. Some developers do like 2, 3, 4 years.
Very few do
Yeah,
2 or 3. So what are you offering me then?
yeah. Okay, I think I'm gonna detach myself from the personality of the developer because it's giving me the creeps because I think I can't sleep tonight.
So,
But
well, let's Daniel and I talk about this for a minute.
yeah,
So what we've observed, and what I know Daniel's observed when he's come to the UK, is that when people come to the end of this period of 12, 24 months, you might have 50, 60, 70 investors all excited because for 2 years they got guaranteed rent. And now they have to go out to the market to fill the property. But you see, it's a massive cliff, because what Daniel sold me in this example as a developer is a cliff, because at the end of the 2 years, there's 60 or 70 investors not sure what to do. They can't fill the properties because there's too many empty. And guess what
yeah,
happens to the rent? If I came to you, Daniel, and you were a letting agent in the area, and there was 65 other investors trying to fill that property, what would you tell me the rent's going to do? Go up or down?
well, it's gonna be a massive oversupply in the area. So,
Right.
and I think one important thing, just that 5 minutes, I was so uncomfortable because I was like, no, that's not that's not what I'll be saying. But the point is, a lot of people get confused because they think they're going to live in a property when they are making the investment decision. Right? I want to buy a
Right.
new property because I can choose which floor and auspicious number or facing, and But when it comes to a tenant, if they're going to stay in a property, maybe one that is 5 years older versus a brand new one, do you think they're going to pay that much more in terms of rent to justify the increased price? So I
That's right.
think what Dr. Rowe is saying is absolutely right. As a letting agent, that's probably someone you want to speak to in the area. After the rent falls off the cliff, what can you get in terms of rent that is in the area to
Correct.
justify? Is it similar to the guarantee, or is the guarantee a inflated guarantee off the
Yeah.
back of the profits that they're making for you?
You'll remember when you first came through a property training with me years ago, one of the things we talked about is doing your due diligence before you make the purchase, whether it's for an existing property or for a new build. And that's exactly what you're saying, Daniel, is it
Yeah,
doesn't matter if they're offering you a guarantee, still do your due diligence. Same thing in Manchester, these people are being offered. When that marketplace has finished with the developer will move on. What they got to be careful about is, what if a brand new development gets built right alongside theirs? That means that people will most likely want to go and have an involvement with the new development, not theirs that they maybe bought 5 years before. And the problem you've got is a letting agent will have a market rent, so they can't force the rent up to match the guaranteed rent. Often guaranteed rents are higher than market rent. Investors get lured in by that, and now they've got no exit strategy. Because the
yeah,
problem you've got now is, if you want to go and rent it and you can't rent it, you think, oh, don't worry, I'll sell it because I was sold it at a discount. But the discount was an artificially made up discount. It was a discount made on a price that was actually evolved from the builder, the developer.
yeah,
So now you've got 50 people deciding to sell their apartments. What happens if these all go up for sale? A buyer comes along, for sale, 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 for sale. All of a sudden, it's very competitive. So the price typically drops on these developments. You'll either see them stay on the market for a long time, or the price comes down, and you don't end up with a discount at all. You end up with a complete, as the seller, you're in trouble
yeah.
because you thought you bought it at a good price, but actually you didn't. You bought it at a made up price.
That's such a good point, and I think we want to distinguish between three different things over here. One
Mm,
is, what is the property price that the developer is selling, right? The second one over here is the value or the market value of the property, right?
yeah,
And this D represents perhaps a discount that they may be knocking off the price. It could be
exactly.
5%, 10%, but it could
Yeah, good
still be
diagram.
grossly above what the market value of similar
Yeah.
sized properties in the area are worth. So one thing
And
that,
And where the amateur goes wrong, Daniel, is if they realize that, they go, oh, don't worry, I'll hold on to it and I'll rent it out. But how can you do that if there's not enough market to rent it out? So now
yeah,
you're negatively cash flowing.
yeah, and I think the important lesson to take away from this short time that we have together, it's almost 10 minutes, is make sure
Mm.
you buy value, don't buy price. And a lot of salespeople will be, perhaps hard selling you on, the discount is only for this weekend and yada yada. But who cares about the discount if you're buying a inflated price, right? So they
Yeah.
could give you a lot of discount, but it's still, when you try to sell it back on the market, you probably realize that the locals in the area, for one, are not going to pay that same price because they definitely know that they know what the value of the property is worth.
Yeah. And I mean, to put this in context, I've been buying properties for nearly 20 years, and I've seen this model in many countries. I've seen it in Italy, across Europe. In Florida, it got really hit badly in the last recession. They were selling loads of off-plan apartments. You've experienced it over there. They've had it in Malaysia, Australia, UK, in the major cities as well. It's a common model. Now, we are, to put a caveat on what Daniel and I are saying, this is particularly focused on apartments where there's large numbers of these. If you are buying it, I have bought off-plan houses before, which have been suitable for renting or for HMO, house of multiple occupation, but they are homes where there's only a small number of homes being built. Most of the people buying are actually home buyers, as opposed to this model, which we're talking about, which is developers.
Yeah.
And when you've got developers building apartments, there's too many of them, and it's oversubscribed. So I think we should make a distinction there, just so you understand.
Yeah, and I think just the point, we're not against developers. I know of some developers that are very ethical and they buy specifically in areas that are not oversupplied or saturated, and they might give guaranteed rents because they know that's what the customer wants. But the guaranteed rent is at the level that even after the guaranteed rent period, you're going to get similar rents in the market.
Right. And I think that's something to check. That's a very good point. There are a few ethical builders out there that do that. But I think it's down to us as investors to do our due diligence.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, our ignorance could be very expensive. People say to me, education is expensive, but frankly, ignorance is a lot more expensive in the property market.
Yeah. I was working through one of my coaching clients, a 10-step due diligence process in property. And at the end of it, we were just joking about how, it's so simple. It's not easy. There's work to be put in, but it's simple. And then I was sharing that point with him, and he said, Dan, it's simple because it's come from experience. You have just whittle it down to simple steps that we can follow so that I can tell whether a deal is a good deal or not a good deal. And I thought that's true. What is if you don't have that knowledge, you don't have a process in which to do your due diligence, like you just mentioned, then you just be confused. Like, where do I start? And actually, I was a bit naughty. I gave him an exercise to say, just research a property. And he said, what should I look out for? I said, just take a step, do anything. And he's like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And I said,
that's true. I mean, you want
points, right?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I know we haven't had time to cover existing properties. We need to do it separately. But the big difference primarily is an existing property that's been there for 50, 100 years. In our country, that's not a long time. It has a history. If you went up north with Daniel or myself in the United Kingdom, you'll see houses there that were built 100 years ago. There's 60 houses all in a row on the same street. We know the market value, we know the condition of the property, we know the history. It's an established price. If you have a block of brand new apartments just down the road, we don't really know what they're worth, and that's the challenge. So that's a topic for another day, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick one for people who might be very keen on existing property. One big risk is the condition of the property, but there are ways to mitigate the risk by sending in experts, a structural engineer to look at the place. I mean, some people say in the UK it's so far, Daniel, I can't fly over and see the property. But I tell them, even if I flew to the UK and I looked at the property, if there was something wrong with it, I wouldn't know, right? What's the point of me seeing the property? I might as well send a member of the team who's an expert who will be able to spot things that I can't see. Yeah.
And we do that. Maybe we can make that a topic for one of our next calls, actually, just sort of key members of the team to have.
Absolutely. Great. So thanks so much, Dr. Rowe. And I think for those of you who are, our last message I want to share is you're thinking of buying a new build property, thinking of, renting it out, make sure to check our previous video, and I'm going to pin it over here, and see if this is aligned with your long-term goal. Because I've just heard some friends that have done that, bought properties, 1.7 million, and I was like, oh gosh, it's definitely going to be negatively cash flowing. I don't even have to look at the figures, right?
So I mean it's probably worth looking at. We can do a quick assessment on an example to contrast that maybe.
Yeah.
If we took that as an example, 1.7 million, how much do they put down? What if they reinvested that somewhere else? We could give them some perspective. That would be a good conversation to have.
Yeah. Great.
I better go. I'm getting a phone call from home. It keeps coming in, so I better take this.
Okay, sure. Thanks, everyone. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do so. And we'll see you in the next video.
Thanks.